Good morning, folks. Good morning, Predicted Trades family. Hope we're all doing well. Hope we all had a great weekend. I hope you all spent some time away from the charts and had some fun. But now it's time to dig in. So, as you can see, futures were open for a shortened session yesterday and overnight as well. And we have started a downtrend after hitting some higher highs from where we closed on Friday. Not surprising after we've had 2 very strong days, and I might even argue 4 very strong days, getting us going back up. Not surprised to see a little profit taking, especially on low volume over the weekend. Let's look at our economic calendar for the week. We got a little bit of data coming out today, a little bit before and after market open. We also, let's see, we have PMI coming Wednesday, job openings, beige book, and some unemployment, jobless claims, and non-farm payroll, NFP. So, we have our normal economic releases this week. Nothing really from the Fed, except that Biden and Powell are having a meeting today. But I don't think anyone Powell's talking this week or anything like that. So before we dig into each name, I wanted to kind of give context for where we are, where we came from, where we might be going. Right? So we got to go back a little further in time. Since we hit a new high, a new all-time high, kind of first of the year, we have been in a sell-off, right? So we still have some, trends and some headwinds to get through on our way back up. As you can see, we broke through this sharper downtrend line last week. And that's when we started getting that strong upward movement, right? We also have a more gradual trend line that we are coming up on. And, at around like 4250-ish this week. And as the week progresses, it'll get a little closer to that 4200 level. Again, if we zoom out, this was extreme down. We broke through that trend. We still have, a less aggressive angle on this rejection that we Dow trend line that we could see rejection. And then if we just zoom out to the high of year and this last big high, you can see that we have kind of a few different grades of downtrend to get through before we can really start saying we're back in a bull market. Also, we have our, daily moving averages that are just starting to, that we're just starting to get above, and they still need to flip and yada yada. But while we're here on a 4-hour chart, I wanted to revisit a topic that I did last week in the Sunday night prep. Let me get this mic a little closer. There we go. So last Sunday night, I did a little prep and talked about moving averages on different time frames. And I used the 21 and the 9 as an example, right? you can see that we can reject it to continue a trend, or get back above it and bounce at it to continue a trend up. We have, once we broke through this trend line, we used the 8 as an acceleration to keep going. This is on a 4-hour chart. They do look different, right? So, for instance, on this 4-hour chart, we could just be coming back to test and keep continuing this trend. We started to break into the 9. We can, when these moving averages move apart and have this spread, when we start to break into the first, it can cause a vacuum down to the next. So, would not be surprised to see this downtrend catch a bounce at around this 4101 today, which is where that 4-hour 21 is sitting. If we are going to continue higher, this week and into June, right? Because June starts tomorrow. If we're going to continue higher, it would probably look like a bounce here. Keep on trucking up through these levels, these zones that we've put together. Now, if we're going to have a more dramatic pullback than just testing these moving averages on the 4-hour, we do have an aggressive trend line from the lows right below that, and then a less aggressive trend line that kind of cuts through the lows of last week, but we kept closing above it, right? So just different grades of support. We could see support at this key level, 4101. It used to be the prior low of year before we broke it in May. So, let's see if we catch a bounce here, if this trend continues or just turns around in the middle of this spread and heads back up. But as we are already through a key level, I'm kind of expecting a test and rejection and down to the next for a reverse. So let's keep an eye on this trend line going into the week, knowing that we also have some trend lines and key levels above that could be where we're headed, right? This 4-hour still bullish and just coming into test. If we start dropping down to different time frames, like a 2-hour, we can see that we're starting to break below the 2-hour, and these are coming to meet each other. And you can kind of look over here just to give you some frame of reference of how we can slip below them but keep on going back up. So even though we are below them, hitting this and going back up would keep these bullish. So 4-hour and 2-hour still bullish. And then as you start stepping down to smaller time frames like a 1-hour, they're already crossed, right? So this is technically bearish. And if we have a bounce up to continue this trend, we'd have to reject and keep going, right? So just something to keep an eye on, as we have had a very good uptrend coming out of last week. How to measure where this pullback could be bouncing to continue the uptrend, and measure where, if we break some key support, then we can really see an actual downside move versus just a pullback on the higher time frames, right? So, as we step on down to a 30-minute, which is our normal time frame that I go through prep, I'll go ahead and load up all the tools that we usually use, but I just wanted to use this moving average lesson that we've talked about in the past and revisit it for today. We have a little downtrend going. Don't fight the trend until it changes. It will always change on lower time frames first. So while we are still, in the process of kind of making an H here on the 30-minute, you'll find if you start stepping down to 1 minute, 3 minute, that kind of thing, you'll start to see the bounce there, and then it will, trickle up the time frames. So let's go ahead and load up all of our tools that we usually have. So that we can see. We do have a daily squeeze that's starting to form around us. The bottom of which back at, low of the year. And the top is about that 4250. Also, where the daily 50 moving average is. So when we talk about upside targets and getting through these key levels, main upside target right now is that daily 50 moving average, which is starting to pull down to 4260, 4250, which is also the top of the daily squeeze. So taking a little break to come back and find support to go test and take those things out if we're going to continue to the upside. We do have we did have a 30-minute squeeze that it's starting to fire down, or that has fired down. Yep. So let's see, should we just continue down to this 4101, looking for a potential bounce there to start heading back up to fill this gap, right? Technically we'll be dealing with a little gap down here on most names. Futures, however, was open, so we have data to give us an idea of where we're at and where we're headed. So, we're going to be dealing with a gap down on most names. Let's see if we, since we're down here, go ahead and tag this key level and then start to go back to fill the gap. Keep an eye that the daily 21 and daily 8 are down here, kind of centered around 4056. Just outside of our, higher angle trend line from the lows. So also, if we slip that 4101, keep an eye on this daily 21 and 8, making a zone right around 4056, which would be the first trend line from the lows to test. If we don't catch a bounce at 4101. If we can catch a nice bounce there, we can come back, fill the gap at around this 4165, and go back to retest this 4200 on our journey, ultimately to 4250 and testing the trend line. All right, let's dig through some names. In Q, basically the same premise. It's in a down channel. Remember, guys, we don't need to fight trend. We need to identify how to hop in an entry. So like if we catch a bounce off of this squeeze bottom, looks like it might be an hourly that's still intact. If we catch a little bounce on the squeeze bottom and we get back to VWAP around open, be ready to short it. Right, to continue the trend to the targets. Now, if it gets through VWAP, you can cut the short and wait for it to pull back to VWAP and a move higher to go long, right? So, the daily 21 is coming up over our key level, and that daily 15, not too far from our other key level at that 12,100. So, you can draw your trend lines as well to see that we'll be coming to test some of these and could catch a bounce on NQ, but these are key levels above and below. If we can find our feet at the 21 here, we've got, 800, 900, and this daily Keltner up above. We're ready. Already made it to 1900. Now back below. And it's, it's daily 50 is not too far above, so I always just watch this for a gauge. You could catch a bounce, around this 1860 to head back up. If that gives out, it'll go down to test this 21 and the daily 8. YM. Already starting to slip the more aggressive trend line. So let's see if YM's going to lead to the downside, which it's, currently kind of trying to do. Let's see if it wants to continue this journey on YM to retest the daily 21, daily 8, and this less aggressive trend line. Or if we bounce before that, like right here or here, could be a bounce point that we see. Basically got 1, 2, 3 before you get to this 21 that you can feel free to mark those if you'd like, but I like to keep it clean. So YM made it to the first Keltner up, almost tapped the daily 50, having a pullback. Just try to envision probably heading to these 21 and daily 8 for a bounce to get back up through the 50. Apple made it up right to 150 on Friday. In fact, when I was looking at it last night before the markets started printing anything for Apple this week, the last print on Apple was 150. So it looks like it peaked above, starting to come back to retest our zone here, looking for 147.5 to hold. You can tell there's also a trend line there with our trend tool. So looking for 147 to hold, catch a bounce to continue this trip higher, back to 155. If we give out 157.5, we could quickly engulf Friday's move up to retest this 144, which is where the daily 8 and daily 15 are going to be landing today. But if we can hold that 147.5, keep trucking higher, next zone above, pretty much right before we get to 155. AMD. Man, they definitely left it alone and then picked it up. Hopefully we all did the same. As I talked about last week, chips look like they needed to break. Looks like they woke up with the market. We are still at the top of a daily squeeze. So let's see if AMD wants to pull back to this daily 50. That might be a little aggressive and engulf all of Friday's move up. But there is a daily Keltner right here, right around that 101. And a teeny tiny 30-minute squeeze is forming in there that we're trying to hold for now. So let's see if AMD can hold up here, can start pushing into this cloud some more. Has to push into these to open them up. If AMD starts to engulf Friday and can't hold the daily 50, then we might be seeing tech going back down to set a higher low before we head higher, right? So, on to Amazon. Big week for Amazon. It is her last week before the split. Been talking about this for a while and saying I expect that Amazon's going to start getting a lot of rotation into it leading into this split. It just makes sense. So, glad to see that it's starting to happen. Let's see if they're going to just continue going up on Amazon this week or use a slight pullback in profit taking in the market to catch it again and keep going, right? Keep an eye at the daily 8 and a Keltner, all down at that 2200. And we did have a nice base here, right about 2250. So let's see if they want to take it back to load it up again at 2250. They take it all the way to 2200. You know, we're engulfing a couple of days of work. They could do that just today, right? 100-point ATR closed around 2300. They could easily take it back to 2200. In one day, and then buy it back up the rest of the week. So we'll just see how far the trend of profit taking goes with the market, or if since we'll be doing with a little gap down, they just start buying and keep on going. Upside targets. Upside targets. Well, all of our daily Keltners stop at about 2700, and the daily 50 is above that. We also have this zone, which I believe is probably from an earnings gap. Let's go look. Yep, earnings gap. So, as far as upside targets, let's see where the market catches its bounce to continue this trend upward. But once we get above this 2316 on Amazon, kind of expect it to start tearing its way back up with this gap fill as a big main target, right? And I know it spans like 200 points. I didn't make the gap, I'm just marking it. So that's kind of the target up above that I'm expecting Amazon could actually potentially fill this week. I know it's only got a 100-point ATR and we only have 4 days. And we're at about 2300. We can get to this zone and to the daily 50. It might mean just, up every day. Crazier things have happened in this market. So, and like we said, the split happens Monday, so they can't take it up anymore after that. Leading into the split. So. Amazon big focus this week. Let's see if the market's going to pull it back some, or if it's just going to fly and lead the market. Cat. Let's go to this. Talked about Cat off of 200 last week. She did not disappoint. Not sure if anyone traded her though. But pretty much opened the week, tapped 200, and then led the upside for YM. Making it back to the daily 50. It has a daily squeeze up above. Back at these recent highs, near 220. So, yep, Cat. Not a huge interest for me. Let's see if it can stay above 212, 214. If we have a little pullback. Or if it can keep on trucking up to 220, up to this daily squeeze top, and start pushing it to fire upside. Facebook. Down from that snap sympathy move, right? Back up through the gap that we had. I'd say gap pretty much filled. Left just a teensy, but that's okay. Let's see if this trend stops at about 193. Big key level that marked the top of that gap. Wouldn't be surprised if POC was right there on it, right? 193.72. So we are basically and a little fade back to POC. Let's see if we can catch a bounce and start heading back up through 195 on a mission to get back to 205. If POC gives out, keep an eye on the daily 8, daily 15, where they land today. I would think we don't need to go all the way back to the low from Friday to catch our bounce, but another point to watch, as well as our zone back in the gap. Google also has a split, but it's mid-July. And apparently Google's on a list of stocks to watch this week, according to these goofballs, along with GameStop and Salesforce. Anyway, Google making it back to the daily moving averages with the daily 21 up above. So let's see if she wants to take a dip to the 8 before heading up through the 21. We can always be ready for chop as well and just bounce around these. But once we clear the 21 and 2300, she could start making a pretty nice move to the upside. But we have time before her split, so Amazon's going to get the attention. GS. Push right up into this daily cloud, gapping down out of it. See if she wants to go fill the gap first before actually heading back to these moving averages, or if we keep slipping and go to tap these moving averages before heading back to fill the gap. JPM. Looks like it's firing that daily squeeze. See that F? That means it's firing. So firing that daily squeeze to the upside. Let's see if she can hold that 130 and keep on trucking. If we give out 130. Uh-oh. Don't freeze on me. There we go. We give out 130. We could be headed back to the daily 50 at 128 and the daily 8 at 125. Microsoft. Is that a gap from earnings? Let's go double check. Yeah, but we've already filled it in. So yeah, that was part of the earnings gap. We filled it in. No real reason to keep it around, but let's see if Microsoft can stay in this upward channel that we can see it's trying to move up this trend line from the lows. And let's drop back down. You can draw a less aggressive trend from the lows. That would basically mean a potential pullback to that 268, the daily 21, before heading higher to get up to the daily 50 at 280, 283. So I would like to see Microsoft, if it does continue this downtrend, hold up that 265, 268-ish, and then head higher. If we give those out, we're going to revisit, probably this 260. Netflix. Moving higher with the rest of the market. I'm almost back to the daily 21. Still has some room to get there. Big psychological 200 as well. Let's see. Would want to see it hold 192 in this pullback, 190. Let's see it hold there and bounce. It can bounce, before it even gets down there. But Basically want to see that zone hold this week for more upside on Netflix. Nvidia fired these larger time frame squeezes to the upside, still has a daily. The top of which is right up at around that 200, 205 range. So that is the upside target for now. We also have the daily 50 up at 213, coming down almost to 210. So those are upside targets. Should we kind of give out this high that it looks like we're trying to hold in the squeeze bottom? Squeeze bottom. If we give that out, most likely coming back to the daily 21 at around 180. But if we can hold that squeeze bottom and just keep on trucking up in this channel, upside targets, obvious that 200, 205, 210. QQQ. Coming up on this key, 311, pulling back from it. Let's see, again, just like the video that we looked at, let's see if we can hold this high from Friday, where we're kind of starting to bounce to fill the gap and retest this level. If we can get through, it's to the zone above at 316, 317. Shop till you drop. Clear uptrend with the market. Shop also has a split towards the end of June, so we got a little time. We have the daily 21 here at around 390. Big psychological 400. Once we get through this 413, so just like everything, it's a mission back to the daily 50, right? Well, let's see how it goes at the daily 21 at this 413 to the upside. If she starts to give out trend line and give up this 360, 357, where these moving averages are going to be, if she gives up and heads below that, could accelerate, to the downside to retest lows. Wouldn't really be shocked to see them do something like that on Shop. Well, even if the market is moving up, they could tank it just to pick it up more back at a good price before the split. And we have a few weeks, so wouldn't be surprised if Shop did its own thing and looked, the whole market might actually, like we talked about in all these theses, the whole market might do a pullback for a higher low. But if it's going to do that, I would not be shocked to see Shop get right back down to this low and then get loaded up again. Snow, not a real interest. They did one of those down on earnings, but just to something key, and then we're bringing it back. That's usually a great sign, as long as a retest of that low holds. It's a great sign for an upside play, but then they just park it and leave it. So not a huge interest here. I think it could very easily be stuck in this range of about 135 to 125. It could just sit there for a while. But if it can get through that 135, start breaking through these moving averages above, we have the daily 21 back at 150. But not a big interest for me. SPX, going to be dealing with a gap down. Mark that gap. We also have some gaps that we left in the dust, right? Some small micro gaps. So definitely mark those, because that could be where we end up finding a bounce on a pullback. There we go. And look at that, the 21 cuts right through it. So go back, mark your gaps. Depending on where we open, we could on SPX just dip down to fill this gap, which would mean bouncing at about 40.60, 40.50 before heading higher. And we'll be dealing with a gap down as well. So basically, once we open, we will be between two gaps. So definitely mark them both and be ready for both scenarios. Oop, spider. There we go. SPY. We'll see where this trend takes us. Same thing with VWAP here. Let's see if this 412 holds. It's where we consolidated before heading higher. Trying to catch a bounce there pre-market. Let's see if that holds. If it gets out, we're right back to that 410. We have the daily 21 down at 40.50, 405.91. Getting back to the 21 is in line with what we just talked about on SPX, getting back to that 40.50, right? So if this 410 cannot give us a bounce to this 412, we are likely going back to that 405, which would be engulfing Friday, but setting a higher low if we catch a bounce at the 21. Once we can take out, fill this gap and take out this pre-market high, we can keep on trucking back above 420. We do have a little daily squeeze coming in here, something to keep an eye on. Square. Well, they let this thing get down there, but man, did they rotate right back in. I mean, damn near a 25% move last week, right? So, Square, gonna get back on my radar now that we're getting back near 100 and we're above the daily 21. So let's see if she wants to pull back and retest that 88, 90 area before heading higher, but getting through a lot of resistance where we sold off before. Square's not looking bad. I like it. She's gonna get some more focus from me this week after I took a little break on her. Tesla. Whew. Man, we nailed Tesla last week on our thesis and on these levels. Last week I said don't touch it if it's below 657. Once it gets back above, it's a great long. And boy, she delivered. Went through all my levels and back to the daily 21. Let's see if the daily 21 holds. If not, going to retest this 744. But if we can get through pre-market high at that 775, key level around that 780, I got a bunch of gobbledygook up above. But basically, it's going to be mission 800, 825, 850. All right. VIX. Let's check in on our good buddy VIX. Because like we've talked about, VIX 25 and 30 and 35 key levels, right? Got back to 25, weeks ago, kicked off another sell-off, where we got back to 25 again on Friday. Boom, starts marking a gap down on the market, gap up in VIX. Let's see if this trend line can keep VIX down. Basically, want to see VIX stay below 28.5 today for us to have upside on the market. It can keep rejecting this 28 and just go back down at open. But basically kind of watching this wedge on VIX, this whole gap up was on, low volume futures trading. So let's see if they just use the gap down in the market and the gap up on VIX to reload from that point and just keep heading higher. Or let's see if VIX tries to get up through this 28.5, 29 to go test 30. which would mean a potential, or, breaking this trend for VIX to head back up and the market to head back down. Key levels to watch on VIX. Really want to see it get down and test 25. And really that 24.5, which is in the middle of a daily squeeze. Like, that's when I would like to actually play any kinds of shorts in the market. And, like a swing type thing. But every day we're going to be watching calls and puts and likely playing both sides. So let's just go back to ES, our main compass. Let's see if we reject this 41.36 or VWAP near open. If we do reject and take out this low at 41.21, going down to this 41.01, maybe even a test of the daily 21 and this trend line below. Let's see if we bounce here, here, or down here to keep heading higher and take out the downtrend from the highs. Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll work. All right, but that's pretty much it, folks. I'm going to wrap up this prep. Got everything done before open. So I did post the Beast tool for today in live trading. Go over there and pick it up. And this week, I don't know, we will likely maybe stick with just one tool, or I'm going to start splitting them up by ticker. I haven't really decided just yet, since we're still kind of testing this new beast, but I did include a lot more strikes today, so curious to see how that goes. And I did update all the data recently, like 3 a.m., so we should be pretty close to the same level, yeah. Okay, looks good. So, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys in chat. Good luck today. Let's slay it. And remember, no beast, no feast.